Hello and welcome back to the Who Look. If you've been hanging around the channel community tab for the last couple of weeks, you would have seen that I've been holding many polls for you guys to vote on. The polls have been run in a tournament format, starting with 4 group stages where the top 2 would progress. They would then go on to play in the quarterfinal, the semi-final, and then finally the final. Now, just to clear this up, as this came up a few times in the comments of the polls, I used a wheel spin to determine who would be placed in each group. The first selection would go in Group A, then B, C and then D, before repeating the process until all 4 groups were full. The original plan for the poll was to also include the Fugitive Doctor, but to keep it 4 groups of 4, I had to either drop the War Doctor or the Fugitive Doctor, so I decided to remove the Fugitive Doctor. I also had worries about 14 and 15 both being included in the poll, as 14 had only just finished his run and 15 has barely done anything yet. So it was my complete surprise when 14 and 15 got put into the exact same group. So these 4 groups were in Group A, the 2nd Doctor, the 3rd Doctor, the 6th Doctor and the 8th Doctor. Group B had the 9th Doctor, 12th, 14th and 15th. Group C included 5th, 7th, War and 11th. And finally Group D had the 1st Doctor, the 4th, the 10th and the 13th. So from these groups, the top 2 would progress to the next round, and whichever Doctor finished first in one group would then play the 2nd place Doctor in another group. Group A finished with the 8th Doctor taking 50% of the votes to finish top, whilst the 3rd Doctor took 2nd place with 28%. This left the 2nd Doctor and the 6th Doctor knocked out with 18% and 4%. The group ended with 374 votes. Group B finished with the 12th Doctor on top with an even higher 64%, and the 9th Doctor finishing with 20% in 2nd place. This meant the 14th and 15th were both knocked out, which was no real surprise to me considering what I've already said. The group ended with 491 votes. Group C had the 11th Doctor take the top spot with the highest from any of the group stages, with 74%, whilst the 7th Doctor progressed with 12%, whilst War and 5th both got knocked out with 7 and 6%. This group ended with 698 votes. The final group was Group D, which had the 10th Doctor take the top spot with 68%, whilst the 4th Doctor would take 2nd place with 24%. This left the 1st Doctor and the 13th Doctor both being knocked out with 5% and 3%. This group ended with 1,000 votes. So this means we have our quarterfinalists, which include 8th Doctor versus the 9th Doctor, 3rd Doctor versus the 12th Doctor, 4th Doctor versus the 11th Doctor, and finally 7th Doctor versus the 10th Doctor. It was essentially classic versus revival, if you personally count the 8th Doctor to be part of the classic era. So, the first quarterfinal had the 9th Doctor beat the 8th Doctor with 76% over 24%. This vote had 979 votes by the time it ended. The second quarterfinal had the 12th Doctor completely destroy the 3rd Doctor with 88% to 12% with 998 votes. This was the highest gap between any Doctor in the whole quarterfinal, so well done Peter Capaldi. The third quarterfinal had the 11th Doctor overcome the 4th Doctor 64% over 36%, which ended up being the closest quarterfinal we've seen. This ended with 1,000 votes. And finally, the last quarterfinal had the 10th Doctor beat the 7th Doctor with 83% to 17%, with 1.3 thousand votes. This meant, going into the semi-final, we only had the Revival Doctors left. This was something I noticed a lot of people starting to comment about, that a lot of the voters may have been Revival-only viewers, so these voters may not have been voting for the Classic era as much. Which brings me to ask the question, would you like me to do another tournament at some point with Doctors 1 through to 8 for the Ultimate Classic Doctor? If so, let me know below in the comments. On to the first semi-final. This consisted of the 9th Doctor versus the 11th Doctor and the 10th Doctor versus the 12th Doctor, essentially being a Russell versus Stephen semi-final. In the first semi-final, we had the 11th Doctor beat the 9th Doctor with 62% over 38%, with 1.6 thousand votes during this period. Then in the second semi-final, we had 12 overcome 10 by 55% to 45%, which is the closest 2 Doctors have been head-to-head so far. This received 2,000 votes. 2,000 votes is also the highest amount of votes at any stage reached within 24 hours. Which brings us to the final, the 11th Doctor versus the 12th Doctor, the Stephen Moffat era showdown. 1.8 thousand voters took part in the final to decide the winner, which ended with the 12th Doctor beating the 11th Doctor 64% to 36%. I will be leaving these polls up for people to continue to vote if they wish, although at this point it's not going to make much difference towards the tournament, but it will still be interesting to see how it will change over time. So now, I wanted to compare to a few other sites and see how our vote compares to others. I looked at Digital Spy, who used IMDb for their list, Collider, who used Reddit, and Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, the community poll was a tournament, so it's different to a list, so I've organised the positions based on the votes per stage. So 12 tops as our winner, and 11th as runner-up, 10th is above 9th because he had a higher percentage in the semi-final, and so on until you reach the bottom. Seeing as this is different from what we did in the tournament, what's your opinion on this being the list of doctors based on the community, or do you think it should be different? So, let's start with Digital Spy, who took their list from IMDb user rankings. For starters, they haven't included the 14th, 15th or War Doctor in their list. The 14th and 15th Doctors aren't in the list because this was written in the middle of 2023, before either Doctor was on screen, other than the 14th Doctor briefly appearing during his regeneration. Their top 5 include our top 5, just in a different order. And from there, the list changes a fair bit. They've placed 8th Doctor, who made our quarter-final, bottom of their list. Next is Collider, who used Reddit to collect their data for the listing. They also didn't include 14th, 15th or the War Doctor in their listings. 14th and 15th due to this list being written at the start of 2023. 12 tops this list, just like ours, and 4 takes 2nd place, who lost out in the quarterfinal in our tournament. 11th is placed in 3rd spot, and the biggest difference this list has over ours and Digital Spy's is that they've placed the 9th Doctor much further down in 9th place. And finally, we took the Rotten Tomatoes article, where the person who wrote this has placed 2 as the winner. Interestingly, our top 4 are more scattered compared to the Rotten Tomatoes article, with 12th being in 4th place, 11th being in 3rd, 10th in 6th place, and the 9th Doctor in 10th. Technically, 9th Doctor was in 11th place, but I shortened the list to include only doctors that we used. This meant Fugitive Doctor was also included and took 9th spot, 1 spot above the War Doctor. Like the other 2 sources we took from, the 14th and 15th Doctor weren't included as this list was made in 2021, way before they were even mentioned. Thanks for watching, and thank you to everyone who took part in the tournament. And don't forget to join the Discord in the description below if you'd want to join a growing community of Doctor Who fans across some different channels. But I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown of the tournament, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.